invoice a ton. But at some point in time, that is the good standard practice, is that if our electric bill is $200 and they're gonna pay 10%, then we send them an invoice for $20. I'm just using numbers, right?
Yeah.
So that there's a paper trail of where did the money go and who paid it back or who didn't. Because then we can say, well, they've got an outstanding invoice for May, June, July, right? It's aged 90 days and you collect it, but that's the accounting side of all of the budgeting that we've never really done.
Is there electric bill just the garage or is it include plug and all the hangers?
Funny truck
Has their own.
it's just
The hangers, they're built individually from their electric.
Yes,
So it's just the garage.
that's correct.
We got a little bit off subject of what we do is meeting so you can get all this resolved and come in. So just like this came down the road, and next year we have the same issue issues. You come in agreement.
So when we did receive the funds, they just brought a check in, and I had no idea what the period covers was. But since the town had been asking for money so long, let's check it out.
They sent us a check, no details, hoping we'll accept it and we can scan it. Not this will send an email.
one side specific details on the check what it's for.
And that building is bigger than this one. That all has to be figured out, and we'll send an email every month saying, here's the total electric bill, here's your percent, here's our percent.
I don't think they pay their bills monthly because they meet quarterly, I believe that's the basis they use. And then the other,
Whatever, whether it's quarterly or
the other thing is, they have some sort of device that measures the electricity being used every day. So they say, and considering old minutes, the town may have purchased that device years ago, if those minutes are accurate. And then they take a reading. I don't know where they get the rate from. I'm assuming someone has access
In other words, we're just trying to make sure we're not short of
So,
I want to put that on the screen on this one.
sorry. Yeah. So to the point of building electric, right? Obviously, we've got a clerk that is in the office, I'll say 6 days a week.
some of those.
But
It's not.
in comparison to 23, there's a fair amount of remote work that was done. So our budget for general building electric 25 was $1,500, which was based off of the averages of 2022, 2023, and 2024 might have been a bit of an odd.
electric's gotten more expensive.
And the electric has gotten more expensive. So whether or not we want to include an increase of where we're thinking, I mean, this is just kind of a simple math formula for October, November, December. Obviously, so thought we were running the air conditioner in the middle of September yet, but we may end up closer to 32 or 33,000 this year. I'm sorry, yes.
115.10.
Yep.
Gonna make that 25.
Well, we've trended higher than 2,500. 24, we're at 2,600.
Right, but the goal is to get them to be paying their share.
Well, even if they do a little change that.
44 should be more.
Well, just so you know, I don't turn the air conditioner on when we're alone unless it's super, super heavy. I don't need it.
The
In fact, I'm cold.
big thing, honestly, is heating this building with electric.
Yes. That's
The monthly bills in December, January, February are the most expensive.
Let's change that to $3,000, gosh. Better change it to $3,000. That's getting close, much closer.
But we're talking about some, the airport. We're talking about the airport.
Yep. So next year, this is the one that we have bright yellow. next year theoretically it's gonna be zero because the town's exempt from paying the real property tax, and all of the rest of the invoices should go directly to the homeowners. So,
Fine, so.
looking back up the, go ahead.
Well, we still, we'll talk to Jonathan. He's supposed to bring us what we can do about this. And I'm gonna ask him at some point, and probably too early to get to that. Although reminders should probably be sent. So,
I think the easy thing is to send out a reminder. And
Yeah.
if they respectfully request that you reach out and say, are you going to pay this and just don't have the money right now, or are you objecting to paying it? Those are two different things. Actually, they can let us know. Or if they don't, we pick a date of October 31st or whatever, and then proceed as whatever Jonathan recommends. It's kind of standard questions, but it's not. To your question before, emergency management, we're back funding 15,000 on what we spent this year. That's it. Just so keep this $50,000 allocated. Something that came up in my mind since we met last week is whether or not we want to draft a resolution to kind of officially stamp this, or just use it as an annual policy internally. What got me kind of stewing on this was in, I believe it was early 2022, the town board had passed a fund balance resolution, which is what the auditors discussed when they presented the audit to us, where they passed a resolution that their whole policy was to have 25% in fund balance, 25% of the annual expenses in fund balance.
when was that?
20,
So, you know what you're talking about there?
1822?
We heard from the
I think
auditors,
it was after the audit was.
let's say we have $1 million budget.
Yes.
We gotta have 250,000 sitting in the fund account for emergencies.
So,
Okay, so we wanna borrow that money, get it. But you never know what you might have to pay.
so addressing this specifically and then addressing fund balance as part of our budget preparation. We could pass a resolution as a board that says, as part of the 2025 budget, we allocated $50,000 worth of funding in a designated allotment that on an annual basis would be recouped for the use. So that there's always just $50,000 sitting there, regardless of what the fund balance is, right? Whether we got 166 or 1.6 million, 50 of whatever we have is going to be allocated towards emergency management every year, right? Because right now, this is going to look as though we're only funding 15, only planning to spend 15, without someone really understanding there's 35,000 in reserve
Sitting there.
designated for that purpose, right? So it might help to clear that up.
I think that's a very good idea. We should do that.
And again, resolutions are resolutions. They are what they are, and they can be overridden by a future board. They don't have to be rescinded like an ordinance that becomes local law. It is a formal, call it proclamation of law. So at the same point in time, any of the rest of how our budget works, we can generally do the same thing. I just wanted to throw that out there. Whether it's ice and snow, emergency management, tree service, whatever. $50,000 in tree service, because we already know we got at least 75,000, probably closer to 100 and a quarter. Like, for the next 2 or 3 years, we could designate funding towards that and either fund up or down, depending on what we get done or need to have.
So maybe the tree thing should be raised a little bit. When it all comes down to trying to make the constituents understand at that November meeting why we need all this money, we need a fire, EMS, whatever we need. One more time, we're required by law to provide fire and EMS protection. So, before we got on the board, that was voted down, the Wyoming and the crew, wanted that, pass that levy increase, mainly for the fire department, and it didn't get passed. So, what do? They eliminated everything. We can't do that like they did. There's only one other way to do it. We're borrowing. But we have to do something.
Did you just say another way to do it, borrow to cover the increase in the fire numbers?
Well, if we're, okay, otherwise you're
Is
gonna
that
have
what you meant?
yes, that's exactly what I meant, because otherwise you're gonna have to, where the hell are we gonna get $215,000 taken out of that budget? The emergency's gone, there's no tree repair,
A lot of stuff.
no
there.
no pothole filling, skip donating to the library, I'm just trying to think of things. What else did I miss? Or Spring Lake Fund or something, donating a little bit of money to the Legion Girl Scouts or something, I don't know what it is.
But we talked last week, that's a
It's 10 grand.
that borrowing to cover for fire maintenance is a self-sustaining negative action.
So let's talk about that.
The fire fee is what we discussed, going to.
Go ahead.
So, it's 2 issues. Okay. The first issue is we're short by $215,000 worth of funding, period. The other that takes along with that is what are the property taxes then? To Frank's point, if we did a 1-year revolving account, we borrowed for it, right now it would cost us, let's say, 5.5% interest on $250,000, okay? If that was issued and paid off in the same year, every single year from now until eternity, we would not have to ask for a levy exceedance.
That's great. How do you pay it off when you get this?
Doesn't generate tax.
You would, because there's 2 things going on. One is the levy limit, which got increased last year to cover the 25 budget. If we issue new debt service, which we can do per statute, if we issue new debt service and pay it off in the same year, you get to collect the property taxes. And the net result is that property taxes go up. We don't have to ask for a levy increase. Because there's, the way the levy limit works is that once you're at your limit, you limit, except for debt service issue that's new.
The question still comes down to the same question we asked last year. Is, here you go,
Correct.
or you want debt service,
Yes.
you're paid interest.
Correct.
And the other way to do this without going to borrowing is fire.
That is
That
another,
comes out of the tax levy. I mean, that doesn't go to a tax levy.
if we can keep the levy where it is and not have to decrease it by what we create for a fire.
And some other who is looking in the budget.
Yes. Otherwise, the mechanism, the mechanics behind this would be this.
There would be a 1-year adjustment.
No,
It would be, watch what happens, okay? So let's say if we do a fire fee, we have to reduce the levy by the same amount. We're just collecting the money in a different application, right? So let's say we're gonna put $375,000 on fire fee, but statute says that we also have to take that off of the general property tax roll. We end up in the same spot,
Yeah.
215 in the hole, right?
For the first year.
Period. Forever. You will end up, you will still be 215 in the hole.
so we wanna
Tax
go
rate
to
doesn't get decreased every year.
Correct, yes.
That's my point, it's a 1-year hit to the.
So we would then have to find $215,000 in funding to net zero with this one.
So,
Because all you're doing, if you're,
You have to show me the math.
okay.
Not now.
Oh, I mean, we still got half an hour, right? I don't wanna do this. I sit on my head.
We got a lot to do.
no, go ahead.
I mean,
So
I
if,
just, sorry, I gotta run to the restroom.
we can get the math right now where do the fire fee 1-for-1 for the first year, that's where you take the hit. But if you do a fire fee next year, the levy doesn't come down anymore. Otherwise, 20 years from now, there'll be zero levy if it keeps coming
you're
down.
right, so let's just do this, if in 20, let's just say 26, right? We're gonna do 300, I'm using round numbers for easy math, 345,000, because it is 719 minus 375, okay? That ends up equaling this. If we collect an additional 375 over here, at the end of the year, we're still 215 in the hole. Okay? That's the math in this cell, right? So it's 718, 800 minus 375. So we collect 375 here, we're still back here. So the first year, let's just say, we have to issue, I'm just using this as the other mechanism, we're gonna issue new debt service of $215,000, right? So this now equals a zero balance budget. The next year, if we don't add in for 2027, new debt service of 215,000, in 2027, we end up 215.
Again,
Unless we cut off,
you have to show me that.
I mean, it's just the way that it works. Because we're not cutting expenses, like,
I'm not disagreeing with you that that's the way it works, all I'm saying is I need to see, I need to see it somewhere.
I don't know how else to show you that, that's my question to you. Let's say in 2020.
A spreadsheet like this that includes 27, but we're not showing the metrics, but we have a lot of other things to go through.
I understand.
I guess what let me throw it out this way. Why are other communities going with fire fee if it doesn't do anything but move cells?
Okay, we gotta wait for John.
I don't know the answer to that. The big answer is whether or not we have to reduce the levy if we go to the fire. And if the answer is no, budget solved, right? The budget is solved, because then we go to this. Now we're 160 grand in the good, because we're collecting 375, the levy can stay where we think it's gonna end up. We're 160 grand to the good. We don't have any road work taken into account, okay?
I understand, but I'll tell you what,
We got 160 grand to put in the road.
yes,
One way or the other, whether that is a combination of, I'm just using round numbers, okay? We're gonna put $9,827 in the fund balance, to make that around $150,000, okay? we're gonna spend $100,000 on road maintenance, meaning chip seal, just using examples, right?
Just give me that.
Then that leaves $50,000 that is included in the budget and the levy as it sits at 719, where we could issue debt service for a 5-year note and repay it. We brought that up last time. Or we could spend $30,000 in new debt service and the other $20,000 for the culvert that has got a hole in it out of Pike Road. Like, however we put that metric together, instead of having to pay $150,000 to do Cooper and then have no other money whatsoever,
Right.
or we could choose to do it that way.
So
Those are
this
the,
is hypothetical,
Yeah.
so Jonathan gives us an answer.
correct.
So let's move on to other things and come back to this once we know the actual answer. That's my suggestion.
That's fine.
John,
I just wanted to like
fire
work through the
fees, just like
details of
garbage
what,
fee on your tax statement, if that fire fees cannot cover EMS, right, Josh, or just, yeah.
that is correct.
So let's just say it's $500,000 is the EMS fire budget, okay? We gotta find out from them, what does the fire service part of that cost? Is it 50%? And that
I mean,
50%,
that's a fair-
250,000, we put off, and there's a way to figure all that out, so it's fair. Yeah, so
So,
we'd have to be like,
I mean, that's an absolute, because I put 375 in there as a round number, there's no way that fire makes up 3/4 of what the budget is. I would be highly surprised,
right,
right?
so you
Just
put
because it hasn't in the past. So if you put 50% in there, now our budget goes to $30,000 in the black, right? Because we're only collecting 244 of the 480. I'm just using
right, I
big
understand.
Polish round numbers.
Well, I mean, the other way to look at it is that our cost, if an open doesn't get that, is 488. Comes on call on, right? The fire is 2/3 of the calls versus EMS, so it's wouldn't it be?
I know, okay, but,
That would be 2/3 of that 488 would be fair.
And that would be the information that likely we could do on our own internally. When we know whatever the number
But that's
is.
not necessarily true. Even if fire was 2/3 of the calls, EMS a third, the cost for EMS may be far less than the cost for fire. So it's not just even though I'm the one who
It's not a
said it,
one-for-one.
when I think about it, it's
Yes.
not a 1-for-1.
Right.
So they have to think, to your point, that's something they have to tell us.
So above and beyond that, right, in the first year of government, whenever it started, the government figured out how to fund the first year. And then they asked everybody to pay it back. Okay? That's why it's the 2025 taxes collected in 2026, and the 2024 taxes are collected in 2025, because we're like back budgeting the collections part of the taxes for this. We're not prorating ahead. So annually, what the town may need to do is to go through the mechanics of figuring out, we got the numbers from the village, I don't even remember what they are, 160 calls or whatever it was. If we're going to do a fire fee, we may annually have to say, okay, how much of that cost was fire, how much of that cost was EMS, and collect that almost in reverse like what we do for taxes. Rather than just taking a round number or an average, we would potentially have to do a 1-for-1 every single year to figure out what that fire fee amount is, kind of like what we do for garbage collection, it's X amount every year that goes on, this or that, whatever. We may have to do that at some point, if we can go to a fire fee, and if it doesn't affect it.
I don't know, we start populating the October, December, or something.
So I talked with Michelle on Monday. She started going through the audit entries as well as just some of the categorization of this year. And I would be hopeful that within the next week, between her doing that and we have a new profit and loss, that we can have this populated, and then we can go through the estimate of if you agree or disagree, essentially with the
revenues, we should know what revenues we have coming.
Those are dead issues.
We're still getting notifications.
For what?
Our revenues, we're just asking for our revenues for that. We get, different notices from the state estimating, certain, fees, and there's a bonus in the charge. And exemption.
I mean, right, but that's when an estimate can be changed to an actual. So like estimates, I mean, we can look at what we spent this year and come up with a ratio, right?
There's, some of our revenues are going to be projected earnings, if that makes sense, and some of them are gonna be projected estimates. It's just, yeah, like, we could go to building inspections and permits and say, okay, well, last year we went 3,400, so far we're at 2,700. Do we wanna know what our budget was, or do we wanna say, okay, well, this year it's not going as fast, you know, so we can make estimates versus.
Why did the revenues of 10,316 for airport, why is that different than 82,76?
Because revenues, we have to do some account cleanup and we should account the revenue plan again when it comes to MC. Okay. Some of them ended up down here in this miscellaneous income versus in the airport.
And these are the ones that just.
And that's
Yeah.
why it's
So
higher,
these
that's
are
why it's higher than our budget.
correct. So I had Frank write down the two account numbers 10 minutes ago. Or whatever it was.
48,903.
We coded the revenues from the airport into this one, other miscellaneous revenue, and some of them into miscellaneous income. Okay? There's also other transactions in those two accounts.
Why was it put in the year?
To Michelle's point, she didn't know exactly where to put them, so she put them in miscellaneous
So it's
revenue.
an out thing.
So-
Yes, well, that's one.
If we look at,
You know what?
Wrong.
yeah, this is what I was looking at before. So, here's airport revenues, okay? And here's the people that their payments got receipted into that, along with these folks. Not all those folks, these folks, okay? So there is some collections under airport. Then there's also some collections under here, surveying, like here's your real property survey, reimbursements, more down here. And then there's some dash this guy, surveying. So we just gotta clean it up and move those receipts into one account under airport as a revenue. Clean that up. It is gonna lower our miscellaneous income, it is gonna lower the other miscellaneous income. Sorry, what are you looking for?
I don't know, sorry, I found it back. I didn't know everything. Revenue from the town of Palmyra, from the village of Palmyra, 114.
Is that $114?
125.69.
Is that only the airport? Some sort of assessment issue with one of the painters and the village, I believe charged us a little to that, so something like this.
Here,
It's on ours, paid
Pay
us.
us.
Who paid both his? I was on the phone with him the other day.
Lou just called me last week, and he never got the bill for,
Yes, there was one.
however, he had purchased it. I didn't know, and I did send it to him last week, so he actually brought it up, so he was aware of it, so. I'm sure that we'll get it up.
Yeah, no, he brought it up to me. He says, no, all the time.
Now, the other thing is, we can't talk about it, we're moving from lawsuits.
So it's kind of where we're at.
I could cross off the use.
I didn't cross it off. We added this in last meeting. is
Oh, you said
516, I separated. Oh, I'm sorry, I did strike EMS, yes,
to potentially separate.
so that we can show it as a fire expense versus an EMS expense, so that we can show it if we do fire fee versus general property tax, yes, correct. So,
$1,047,000, the town budget is about what the fire budget is. Fire department, unfortunately, it's paid. Really, $1,027,000, this says $1,047,000. That's what I'm talking
so,
about.
not a ton of fundamental progress, but I think the big picture of things, can reiterate where we were last week. It's this 215 number is going to become the big swing door on what we do.
I don't
By,
want to,
by,
I don't want to say this, but they're gonna push us right now. Time, don't you agree? It's gonna be pretty tough. But then, before this whole thing's done, it's gonna be December. The budget,
oh, it can't be.
It was good time last week of October and first week of November,
when do you got that,
November, middle of November.
I mean, our meetings the 16th, 17th, 14th.
So that's going on
14th, I think.
14th of November, which means by the, I'm gonna call it 25th of October. We generally have to be done in the case where we want to request a levy exceedance.
Because the village's dates line up with ours, so they have to have theirs done.
No,
So that we, are they later than us?
yes,
How do we get numbers put up, but they have to be done later than us?
yeah, that was the agreement.
the later part of the meeting, work session? It's,
Language
okay,
first,
in other words,
yes.
I'll retract my statement. They're gonna push it right to the last possible day. That's what happened
And we
before.
may want to too.
100%.
You're right.
We may want to put pressure on them as well.
So, as I don't know if I'm swimming